Hey, you got it. That sounded like Fat Albert. That was weird.
You can have it.
World famous photographer Chase Jarvis.
Macklemore and Ryan. It's Purecast, exactly the way I like it. This is one of those episodes where I answer your questions. You guessed it, by all those Hey Chase. Actually, hey, speaking of, from here on out, I tell you what, I always want to be answering your questions, and we're always going to be trying to backlog these things so I can just bust one of these episodes out whenever I need to. So starting today, hashtag heychase with your question, and then I'll track that down for the next time. But for now, let's get into these four questions. Number one, Nicholas Moulin. How did you overcome the fear of taking street portraits without being too intrusive? Well, first of all, I'm going to send you to a blog post that I wrote about street photography. So just go on the old blog and do it as street photography, or you guys can link to that in the video or something. Second, there is a universal language where you don't actually have to walk right up to someone and, like, say you're in India or you're in Africa or somewhere where you don't know the language. Just like walking up to someone and like having your camera out and a little nod and a smile. That's a great first step, especially when you're in a foreign land. I'll just say that, when you're in a foreign land. But thing number one, maybe this is sort of like, go back to the top of the hour, smile when you're asking someone. Smile and introduce yourself. I think the person who's the best in the world at this that I know is Brandon Stanton. So Brandon, Humans of New York, if this is the first time you're hearing the words together, Humans of New York, then I'm sorry, but you're living under a rock. It's an amazing series by my pal Brandon, just street portraits of New York with their story. So it's Facebook, you might have heard of it. His average post gets about 150,000 likes. So I'll tell you the way Brandon does it, because I think Brandon's great, actually. And there's a great CreativeLive episode too where Brandon was on, and he actually demonstrates that in real time. So you should watch that too. That's right here. But Brandon does, he introduces himself and says, "Hi, my name's Brandon. I run a site called Humans of New York where I photograph people in New York and get their stories out." Or something like that, something tight. I think you should adopt something similar. So have a thing and then tell the person what you expect or what you want to do and try and make it very, very quick. Another thing, do not be that freaky, tweaky stalker person who's like pointing the camera at people and then you get caught and then you act all weird. That's super lame. Do not do that. So, there you go. Next question is from Thomas Schildhauer. What do I think about coffee? I've traveled pretty extensively throughout the world photographing coffee and that culture. So as a cultural element, I like coffee. As a drug, as a stimulant, caffeine is a great drug. I have a love-hate relationship with it, however. I think, you saw my video about morning routines. I did not talk about coffee because I do not think it's a requirement. I don't start every day with it. Sometimes I have tea, sometimes I have nothing. Sometimes exercise gives me that buzz. But specifically to your question about coffee, I like using it when it is appropriate. I don't like relying on it as something that gets you from -1 to 0. I like it when it's 0 to 1. So if I ever feel like I'm personally getting really dependent on that pick-me-up in the morning, I try and actually go off coffee, or certainly step way the f*** back. I know just being in Silicon Valley a lot with all the work we're doing with CreativeLive, I know so many entrepreneurs who are just like on their 6th, 7th, 8th cup of coffee. That's just not healthy, man. That's gonna burn out, it's gonna fry your adrenals, it's gonna do all kinds of really bad things. So stay chill with the coffee. I actually call it, and I think I may have got this from Kelly Starrett or Tim or Ramit, one of my pals, worry juice. That's what I call that shit, worry juice. If you start to have 2-3 cups, I'm telling you, like your mind starts doing very, very bad things. You get paranoid, you ask bad questions of yourself, you start making bad decisions. So if used wisely and intelligently, it can be a very effective thing. If you don't use it like a drug to get you from -1 to 0, then you can use it when you actually need it. Nice little dose of caffeine is good before you record, say, a CJ RAW. This one is from Kian Tron. Could you talk about a time when you realized you could not fly solo anymore and you had to hire a production team or crew? How do you tackle that task? And what's the process in terms of hiring them, trusting them, teaching them, all while keeping your brand and image consistent? That's a very long, thorough question. I'm going to try and answer it very directly, which is hiring people as full-time crew is a huge step, and I don't take that lightly at all. I look at personally being responsible for the income and the livelihood of another and their family. So my first recommendation is ask yourself the question, do you really need somebody full-time? Do you have the income and the flow to support that? If the answer is yes, then great, go ahead and we'll take that question in just a second. If the answer is no, have you thought about hiring people on a per gig basis? When you're going to get paid, you have time to bring on an assistant. I absolutely 100%, no questions asked, believe that you should start there. Hire people on a per hour or a per day basis to just get work done for a particular project. That's a great way of figuring out how to sort of A, hire people for the right people for the right job, B, how to interact with someone who reports to you, who works for you, C, what it's like to work in cahoots with somebody on set. So test drive, that is absolutely the smartest thing you can possibly do. I like collaborating. For example, when you are, you put, like, you got a makeup artist or a stylist and you're a photographer, just getting together and swapping ideas is a good way to find out who you work well with, who you don't work well with, what kind of personality, if you could hire somebody full-time in the future, what that might be like. Again, test drive. If you have the ability to keep someone busy 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or that's not true, 40, 50 hours a week, then you can move into hiring somebody. First things first, like, get some sound business advice. A, how do I do it? B, are they hourly? Are they salary? What are the rules and regs that you have to play by? That stuff actually matters. Now, I generally hire from my peer group or one removed from the peer group. And in doing so, you're bringing on people that have some sort of history, a friend or a friend of a friend. I actually like working with that cross-section of people. A lot of people say don't work with friends. I'm not sure that works straight out of the gate. I think that's part of learning how to interrelate with someone and how to manage them. And I think, like, just generally writing down exactly what you want and saying there's going to be some ambiguity around that, all that stuff is very, very helpful to put it in writing. And then you read that and you start shopping that against, like, what do other people need? How does this, how does what I'm writing right here compare to other jobs I see out in the industry? You don't want to be out in complete left field. You don't want to have a job that's so esoteric that someone has to, like, decipher, they have to, ask you 1,000 questions to figure out what you want. Things like photo assistant or studio manager, these are sort of standards. I would sort of gravitate to some of the standards and try and align the things that you want this person to do underneath some of these traditional headings. And then when it comes down to hiring, I think there's a whole world of questions that you should ask someone when you hire them. Mostly, I think, A, they have to be competent and you have to know that they're competent. So I would never hire anybody without giving them some homework. Both the people who are on the other side of these cameras right now, they got homework from me before they were allowed sort of into the inner circle. Both of them had some sort of a tryout phase where I asked them for ideas, we exchanged ideas, and we could find out if we were on the same planet, let alone they would be great employees. And again, this is all under the assumption that you've done the math and you're not bringing somebody in only to realize that you can't support that. So you need to make crystal clear, sure, that it's time to hire somebody, because there's nothing worse than hiring someone, realize you can't afford it, and then having to let them go. That's disrespectful to that person, and I think it's a weak-ass move on your part. Here's how you decide if you're gonna hire someone. If you see them at a party, and would you wanna walk across the party to say hi to that person? Those are the only people that you hire, because they're interesting or smart or uniquely skilled in some way, and you'd want to connect with them about that. That's one good rule of thumb. On the trust thing, if you can't trust someone, definitely do not hire them, because trust and accountability are two really, really key components of who you choose to work with. You can't choose the weather, you can't choose the marketplace, but you can decide who you go to work with every day. I look at bringing people into the world as adding to my brand. If this person is a liability, I would never invite them to be a part of the party, whether that's for CreativeLive or anything else. They need to fit the ethos, the values that your brand stands for. You should know those off the top of your head. So for what it's worth, training someone is a requirement. You shouldn't actually assume that they're just going to figure it out. You need to spend real time teaching them stuff and keeping your brand consistent, they should know what they're joining and you should enforce it. This is the direction we're going. Ideally, people who come in from the outside add value, add brand equity, add brand dynamism. If you're talking about having somebody else photograph for you, I don't have other people take the pictures for me. There's all kinds of stuff like when I'm directing, other people might be operating the camera or whatever, but my name's on the door. It's really my name first and foremost that is responsible for the final quality that we hire for or that we deliver. That's in an independent artist world, and in a business world where you're joining a brand like, say, CreativeLive, you just want to make sure both people's brand values or values, human values and company values are completely aligned. So there you go. That was a long one, but now back to the last question from Felix Baum. I would love to hear what tools you're using for being productive and memorizing ideas, inspirations. For example, I use Wanderlust, Evernote, OneNote, and a good old paper notebook. All right, number one, top of the list is Evernote. Evernote, in case you don't know, it's sort of like, it's the everything file cabinet where you can just chuck it in there, take a picture, take a screenshot, record something, and just tag it, and you can always go back and find it. I have the Pro, the upgraded version. I used the free version for a little while and instantly realized that it was so worth the $10. It searches text, so if you take a picture of a business card or something, you can type it in and it'll read that stuff. It's just fantastic. I literally use this app every day, no less than 10 times a day. I keep all my notes in it, reflections on all the meetings, my agenda for the next meeting, my notes for the shoot, brand ideas that I saw by watching a film or seeing something at the MoMA or the Met or some cool thing. It's all in Evernote. There you go. So Evernote, thing one. Thing two, I still love a great notebook, a great Moleskine or something you can carry around to actually sketch in, to draw. I, unlike folks like Tim Ferriss and Michael Beirut, who's a famous designer, one of the founders of Pentagram, I think he's got hundreds of journals and notebooks from his career, and he names them and numbers them and all that stuff, and he's really meticulous. I don't do that, but I love a good sketchbook. So those are the two things that I use to stay organized, keep my ideas and inspirations in check. So that's it for the questions, but before you go, important thing I want to remember, I pair every CJ RAW episode with a kick-ass CreativeLive class, and this time I'm pairing this episode because there's a lot of questions, and one of the main questions that I get all the time is about finances and about how to make money and have a life as an artist, not just toiling away in your parents' basement. So the person that is the best in the world at helping artists think about stuff like this is a guy named Ramit Sethi. Ramit's a good friend of mine. He's been on CJ Live, and he has a kick-ass class here on CreativeLive, Money in Business for Creatives. Check it out. You will not be disappointed. The dude has taught me a grip. Whew, that's a lot of talking. I am going to send this one back to you, but before I do, reminder, hashtag heychase if you want me to answer your questions. There you go. Signing off, my friends. I don't know why I'm doing this like a salute, but that means signing off, I guess. Have a great day.
You can have it if you want it.